Good afternoon again, everyone, and thanks for your joining us. All right, I think we have quite a good number of people. We can start the session now. So thank you again for taking the time out to join us for this afternoon webinar. I just want to confirm, can you guys all see my screen? And also, am I audible? Okay, I can see most people are already okay. All right. So I'm sharing my slide here. So please let me know if, let's say, you have any issue to see the slide or anything, you can just highlight to us. So I'll be your presenter for today's webinar. My name is Ibrahim Bashir. I'm actually a cybersecurity account manager here with Condition Zebra. And I've actually been here now in this industry for close to 10 years now. So helping organizations to improve their cybersecurity and also to basically train their employees and as well implement the proper strategies to improve overall security posture. So for today's webinar, right, we are basically focusing on insider threats and also the risk that is associated with human factor, right? So some of the topics that we'll be covering today is just some understanding about insider threats, right? What are their motivations? What is this insider threat, and then what are the causes and all the kind of behaviors, and also basically how HR and people managers can actually improve in terms of the cybersecurity posture for the organization as well, right? To mitigate these kind of threats. Right. So of course, we're also going to talk about whatever question that you have and how we can actually assist you as Condition Zebra to improve on your overall security posture as well. Right. So before we go into the webinar, I just want to do some housekeeping sharing here. So first thing is, I believe some of you are having quite a number of questions. Maybe you're wondering whether can we have a copy of this session after the session has ended. So yes, we are actually recording the session, and then we will share the recording to those that requested. So if, let's say, you're interested, you can just indicate by send us an email or WhatsApp or something, and then we will actually share the recording to you as well. Then for those that are wondering, how do I ask questions? So we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please, you can maybe drop your question in the chat box, and then we will answer at the end during the Q&A. Right, and then we do have additional product support and offerings, especially for those that stay till the end of the webinar. We do have some free assessment that we are actually offering. Right, so of course, after the webinar has ended, you can feel free to reach out to us as well if you need any additional support in terms of you want some training or assessment or things like that. So before we go into the topic, I just want to let us know who is Condition Zebra, right? So Condition Zebra, it's a purely cybersecurity company. We focus on cybersecurity assessment, cybersecurity trainings, and awareness programs as well. And then we also provide managed security solution or SOC services. So we have been now in this industry for about 18 years, and to date, we have completed more than 1,000 security assessment projects, and we have trained on 10,000 people on cybersecurity. So this is just a quick overview on the services that we are offering as well. So if, let's say, you need any of such services, please feel free to reach out to us. Now, a quick exercise just to warm us up, since I believe we just had our lunch break. So maybe we just a refresher or something to warm us up. So we can do a very short exercise. This is a game. It's called What is My Nickname According to Social Media, right? So how do I get my nickname, or how do we get our nicknames according to this social media, right? It's actually by combining two things, right? So first thing is your pet name and your birthday, right? So you combine these two to get your nickname according to social media, right? So for example, I use my case. Mine is Simba 2311, right? So Simba is the name of my pet, and then 2311, which is 23rd November, is my birthday, right? So Simba 2311, this is mine. So anyone care to try out to see what is theirs? So how to get it is, first thing, your pet name, if you have any pet, or if you don't have, you can also make up one pet name, and also your birthday. Of course, don't put your year, right? Just your month and the date will do. So my case is Simba 2311. So please feel free to drop in the chat you want to try out, see what is yours. So I put mine in the chat. It's Simba 2311. So anyone wishing to try, you combine your, okay, we have one, Oreo 2809. Okay. Oh, Bella Hadid. All right. Interesting names. Luna, oh, Fifi. Okay. All right. Oh, we have Ash. All right. All right. Buaya. Okay. All right. So quite a lot of interesting names. Oh, Arshad. Okay. Oh, CY Young. Okay. So I believe you guys all understand the concept here. So I just want to share one thing, right? Do you all notice one thing, right? This information that I actually ask you now is actually asking you to reveal some of your confidential information. And we are also happily, willingly providing this information, right? Because let's say, for example, if you want to reset your password, for example, for your email account or for a certain account, they might ask you this kind of question, right? They will ask you maybe for your pet name, and then together with your maybe your birthday or maybe certain confidential or certain so-called personal information, right? To try to give you privilege to reset your password, right? So there's a lot of this kind of games out there. You can see so many times they post on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, or on WhatsApp, someone will send to you, let's play this kind of game. So please, please be very careful. These kind of things or this kind of tactics, right? It can actually be a way for the hackers to gather your information. So of course, whatever information I asked just now, since you don't provide like your year and all that, this is you consider safe, so you don't have to worry, right? But just for your knowledge, yeah, this kind of information you shouldn't easily disclose, because when it comes to attackers or the bad actors, they can use this against you, right? They can use this information to do further attacks, to maybe change your password or to do something else on your accounts, right? So in certain cases, it's not only asking like maybe this kind of question. Some they might even ask you for directly ask you for your username, right? And there's some experiment that was actually done in Europe, whereby the cybersecurity company, right? They actually set up a booth in the public space, and then they ask any audience member that is walking around, hey, you mind to share your what is your password, all right, randomly, right? So of course most people will not share, right? But when they give an incentive, they say, oh, you mind to share what is your password, we give you one chocolate, right? Or we give you certain incentive, certain free gift, right? Then suddenly the number of people willing to share also increase, right? So of course some they will make up the name is a fake one, right? But some they will actually share, right? Because they think, oh, this is not, maybe it's only my email account, nothing there, I don't have, it's not my password to my bank account. But the risk is there whereby someone can use that information to do further attacks on you. So we have to be very careful in terms of managing information security, right? So this is just something to wake us up, right? So now talking about information security, anytime we talk about information security, we have to look at three different areas, right? The three pillars, what we call the CIA triad, right? So confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? CIA. So what are the CIA? Of course, it's talking about confidentiality, right? Whether the information should be disclosed or not. Then integrity, whether the information is accurate or not. And then the availability, right? It should always be available when it needs to be accessed, right? So some examples here. So let's say today you go to your Shopee or Lazada, all right? Or maybe your Maybank or CIMB bank banking application, right? Of course, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing there is confidential. Your password, your bank account balance, all this confidential information should not be disclosed or to the public, right? So first thing, confidentiality, then integrity. So if let's say you put a balance in your account is 10,000 ringgit, right? This 10,000 ringgit should be genuine, right? 10,000 should mean 10,000. It's not like you expect to see 10,000, but you see 7,000, right? So the integrity, or maybe you save certain files in your laptop, you save 10 documents, when you come back, you see only 5 documents, right? Or maybe certain things change. So this the integrity of the information, then the availability. Now, when you need to access your information, your Maybank account or CIMB, it needs to be available, right? So whenever attackers are targeting something, they will basically focus on these areas. Is either they will attack the confidentiality or the integrity of the document or the file or the system or the availability, right? This is where things like DDoS come into play, right? So now a quick question, just random question to the audience: who should be responsible for information security, right? Of course, most people, they will just simply think, oh, it's IT department, right? They blame it to IT, right? I am from HR, or I'm from finance, I'm from procurement. IT is not my responsibility. IT department should take care of information security. This is the mindset that a lot of people are having, right? But it's also the wrong mindset. Why? Because information security is everyone's responsibility, right? So the IT is there, yes, to protect you and the organization. They will put in the firewall, they put in all the controls in place, but you also have to be responsible for your own portion of the security as well, right? It's not just leave it to IT, right? Because even though, let's say, IT put in all the password, everything, all the firewall, but how about if someone simply disclose the information, volunteer the information, or maliciously go and harm the system, right? Which is one of the topics we are covering today on insider threat, right? So definitely, cybersecurity or information security is everyone's responsibility, and everyone must share in this responsibility. So what do I mean by this? So the way I imagine cybersecurity in an organization, right? You have to think of it like a pipeline. Let's say a long pipeline, let's say stretching from here to Johor, for example, right? That's a, right? Of course, it won't be one single long pipeline, right? It will be a connection of multiple pipelines, right? So you connect one pipe to this end, and then connect another one, connect another one. So at every junction or each connection is one person's responsibility. So let's say IT has done their part, they pass it down to the rest of the employees, right? Then everyone also have to be responsible for their connection or for their junction. So at each of the connection of the pipe is an individual or an employee, right? And they have to be responsible for their own portion of it, right? So if, let's say, we all responsible for our own portion, then the whole pipeline will be secured. But let's say someone dropped the ball, right? Whether intentionally or unintentionally, then it will lead to cybersecurity incidents. All right, so what are the result, or what are the endpoint that end result that happen when there's cyber attack, right? Or the issues that we're facing? Of course, a very common trend right now, everyone is aware, is cybersecurity is becoming a very hot button topic. The trend is going higher and higher. The very common thing for organization is financial losses. All right. Of course, there is other things like reputational losses, but the primary one usually will be financial losses, because let's say today, even you lose your reputation, end of the day, it will lose to losing your revenue, and then losing your revenue, of course, the company keep going down, right? Or maybe someone stealing your confidential data or your intellectual property, those kind of things. So there's actually a trend that we are seeing here. And according to the statistics, right, it's actually increasing year by year, and expected by 2028, the cost of cybersecurity annually, it will be about $13.8 trillion, trillion US dollars, right? This is the cost to organization, right? So actually it started out, if you look at around 2020, the cost is actually around 3 trillion, but it's increasing exponentially. And then by 2028, it's expected to hit 13.8 trillion. Another common statistics that most people are not aware, actually 53% of organization, right, in Malaysia have actually been experiencing some kind of cyber attack or some kind of ransomware attack, right? Or some kind of cybersecurity incident. And some of them actually experience about 10 times, different degree, can be very small one to very serious one, right? And then, of course, another incidents that, or another statistics out there is 72% have actually experienced at least one cyber attack in the last 4 years, right? So you can see the trend is very prominent as well. And why is this happening? So another very common statistic, majority of the cyber attack is happening due to human error, right? Due to human error. Because as I mentioned earlier, let's say today, IT has done all their infrastructure, all the security, firewall, EDR, endpoint, all the security is in place, but human being is actually the weakest part, or the weak part in terms of cybersecurity. All right, so this is a very old image here. I'm not sure whether you have seen this before, but this is actually quite old one, whereby this is a boxing match between two opponents, right? So on one part, you have your data security, you have your firewall, your IT department, your SOC, all the security is here. Then on this other corner, you have Dave, right? So Dave signifies human error. right? So human being, like I mentioned, human is the weakest part on cybersecurity. So who do you think will win this match, right? Of course, you can see Dave has given data security a very bad beating. And why is this? Because even all the security is in place, if human being actually has access to it and they just simply give out the password or simply unlock the access, then there's no point for all the data security. That's why it's very essential for us to educate our staff and also to prepare our employees to make sure they're ready to face cyber threats. Right. So now just to try to understand the human factor in insider threats, right? When we talk about insider threat or we talk about cybersecurity, of course, we have the technical portion of it, but today we are focusing more on the human side, the human factor, right? And I mentioned earlier, human is the weakest link in cybersecurity, right? So actually, according to some statistics, 95% of cyber attack happen due to human error, right? And then phishing also is the most common form of social engineering attack. Over 99% of cyber attacks start with a phishing email, right? I believe we all understand what is phishing, right? We know what is cyber attack, all right? And then, of course, insider threat account for up to 34% of all data breaches, right? So even though today you have train your employees, you have your firewall, you have all these things, but you still have to be concerned about this 34%, because this 34% is human insider threat, right? Someone that is, for example, an IT person or someone that's having very high privilege in the organization, they have access to a lot of things. And when they simply unlock or they decide to turn into a bad actor, all the security that is put in place, they can simply just copy out and move the data, right? Or they can sabotage your system, right? So that's why you always still have to worry about this 34% when it comes to insider threat, right? So another thing we have to realize is, so hackers only need to break into the weakest link in the process, which is the human, right? So today, let's say someone is a hacker, they want to attack your organization. They don't have to go and focus on your firewall, hack all this hack. They just need to become a friend to one of your colleagues or your staff. They find out the weak link, then they try to get them to do the action on their behalf, right? So this is why the human part is the most critical part of cybersecurity. Right? So like say, even though your product is secure, the process itself, it might not be secure, right? Let's say your infrastructure firewall is secure. How about your process? Do you have proper controls or measures to make sure that people are not able to disclose or move around this kind of information, right? So another thing is, of course, and one of the quotes by the hackers is, I could often get passwords and other pieces of sensitive information from companies by pretending to be someone else and just asking for it. So this is one of the quote by Kevin Mitnick. So Kevin Mitnick is actually one of the most famous hackers in the world, right? He actually has his own cybersecurity product, which is called KnowBe4. Basically, they are teaching people on how to do security awareness and all these things. And he's a very famous hacker that was caught, I think, back in the 90s there. So Kevin Mitnick mentioned that he can simply get the information by simply asking for it, right? So sometimes it might not be so complex that you have to go and do hacking or technical thing. By simply asking the right person in the right way, you can actually get those information, right? So now just to explain a bit more on the types of social engineering. So of course we have phishing. I believe everyone is familiar maybe with phishing, whereby someone is sending out fake emails or pretending to be a certain party, and they try to get people to click certain email links or attachments, right? Or to take some action on their behalf. Like, for example, one of the cases whereby someone will actually pretend to be your customer or pretend to be your vendor, and then they will send an invoice, and then they will ask for payment. Or maybe a genuine email is being sent out between your your employee and your vendor or your customer. Then someone might intercept it, and then they will manipulate maybe the account details and then send out to your finance and ask for payment, right? So all these kind of things can happen, and we have been seeing them in the real world cases as we are practicing in cybersecurity, right? So phishing is very, very, very critical these days, right? Another thing is baiting, right? By giving out bait, like offering free things or offering promotion or offering something for the person to take some action, right? Or tailgating. So tailgating is maybe you have your office restricted area, but someone can pretend to be a certain party, follow behind one of the staff, and then simply go get access into those restricted areas, right? So phishing is basically voice phishing. So the same concept, for phishing, whereby people pretend to be a certain party. In this case, in phishing, they just do via phone call. They call in to maybe your staff or your colleagues. They pretend to be a certain party and try to get them to reveal confidential information or try to get them to take certain action on their behalf. So very common area, very common practice these days, like this kind of voice phishing attacks, myself included. I've also have experienced this most recently, just last week. Someone also called me to pretend to basically say that they're calling from MCMC and asking me that I need to do certain action because otherwise my phone number will be blocked after 1 hour. Right? So all these are fake calls, scammers trying to get you to do certain action on their behalf. So always you have to verify and be very careful. Now, talking about the social engineering and insider threats, how do these two relate? Right? So of course, there is a correlation between social engineering and insider threat, because social engineering now is talking about manipulation of individuals to reveal confidential information, right? Or to take certain action on behalf of the attacker, right? Insider threat is a risk to the organization by individuals from within the organization itself, but someone that is a trusted party or someone is having privilege or authorized access, right? If they decide to become a bad actor, or even sometimes not necessarily on their own, not necessarily with their own intention. Sometimes it's unintentionally because they are not aware or they don't have enough knowledge. They can actually become a threat to the organization. So it's our duty to make sure that we put in processes to control this kind of things and to train them to be aware on these kind of things. So sometimes it can be based on malicious actors, all right? Sometimes it can be accidental, or sometimes it's just negligence. I don't care, right? We have a lot of employees sometimes that this thing, they think security is not my department, it's not my concern. I see something, but I won't do it. Sometimes it's not even technical security, it can be physical security within the office space. Maybe someone see a door is left open and they just leave it up. It's not my responsibility. This door, they know it should be closed, but they leave it because they don't care. So we always have to take into account these kind of things. Of course, when we talk about all this, as I mentioned, we are focusing on human error, and we have to understand not only system or machine can be hacked, human being can be hacked, right? Now there's a very common trend, which is AI. Everyone is talking about AI, different AI. And the issue is with AI becoming very common, right? It's also very easier for hackers to attack us because AI simplified the job for the hackers, right? You don't need to do anything. They just set the AI will hack you. So there's actually a news report by Amazon that they actually experienced more than 1 billion cyber attacks in one day. 1 billion with a B cyber attacks in one day. And of course, this is all not human beings sitting there doing 1 billion attacks, it's AI. So Amazon also implement their own AI to protect against this. So it's basically AI fighting AI. But this is one of the things that we have to be careful, because now as the world is getting more and more advanced, this kind of threats will be coming more and more. So even now the hackers, some of the voice call or phishing call they do, they don't have to do themselves. They said the AI will do it themselves. So we have to be very alert to this kind of things. All right. So also another common thing is now even human beings get scammed by, for example, a case of a jobless woman in Selangor actually loses about 2 million ringgit in crypto scam, right? So someone pretending to be certain party and get scamming people. All right. And then of course there's case of teachers losing their money, about 2 million ringgit, and even retirees as well. And then now in cases there's contractors as well, engineers as well. So it doesn't have to be the knowledge level of the person. It actually has to do with how aware they are in terms of, or how alert they are in terms of cybersecurity, right? So now when we talk about the motives of insider threats, so of course we have to realize that since these are all human beings, we're not dealing with system anymore, we're talking about human being, then the concern is mostly financial gain. Sometimes it's ransom, sometimes it's maybe they want to plant a ransomware in your organization to get more money, right? Or sometimes it's hacktivism, right? Maybe they are not happy with certain government agency, right? And then they try to hack the organization or hack the government agency, or they are not happy with certain policies, then they will try to sabotage, right? Within your organization itself, it could be maybe your organization implements certain policy that is not popular, or maybe slash salary or cut leave days or something, some policy come up, and some of the staff maybe is not happy, then they can decide to sabotage, right? In terms of ideology or political reason, for example. And of course, there's disruption. So certain cases, maybe they want to revenge, or maybe they want to just simply cause a harm to the system or to the organization, right? Or sometimes it can be even disgruntled employees. They already left the company, but then they're not happy. Then they decide to take this kind of action, or to harm the company or to spoil the company reputation, right? And of course, there's data theft and identity theft. So data theft, we're talking about, they simply steal your data, maybe your client list, or maybe, for example, your certain intellectual property, right? Or maybe they steal your identity to pretend to be certain person within the organization to take certain decision or action, right? Maybe they pretend to be your CEO or CFO or certain person, and then they try to get the staff or the colleagues to do certain action there. All right. So another thing is competitive advantage. Of course, you have to understand, since we are mostly business organizations, people sometimes also want to sabotage other business, right? They might decide to engage one of your staff to give them certain weaknesses about your organization, or to reveal certain confidential information, or even to provide them your trade secret, like your source code, for example. There's a recent case by Nokia, whereby one of the Nokia employees actually steal the source code of Nokia and pass it on or sell it out to outsider, right? So for those of us that may be not technical, the source code, of course, is the main code of the application that developed the web application or the mobile application of the product, right? So this is something very sensitive that they actually able to steal it and sell it to that party. There's also cases of course, espionage within certain, maybe even political nations. So for example, within like Russia, China, US, all these geopolitical issues, right? So certainly you have certain people that defect from Russia, go to US, share all the Russia secret to US. And then of course you have people from US go to Russia, also share the secret to Russia, and these kind of things keep on happening, right? So insider threat is always going to be there, right? Of course, vandalism or mischief. There's sometimes some people just simply don't like to have peace, right? They just want to have, maybe they are new hackers, or maybe even your staff go online, go on YouTube, go on Google. They find a lot of hacking tools. They learn hacking, and they want to practice on your organization. They want to practice on your company website or company network, right? So all this will lead to insider threats, right? So now the common related human cybersecurity risks when it comes to human error or human issues, of course, phishing. Of course, another common thing is weak password. So sometimes, even though people know, okay, I don't intentionally want to harm my organization, but I'm lazy to change my password, right? This can be kind of the threat, right? It can become a threat to the organization, right? So for example, using weak or easily guessable password can expose individual or organization to unauthorized access. Some more, this can also happen when the individual is using the same password across multiple platforms. So for example, I use my company email password. I use it for my Facebook. I use it for my Gmail. I also use it for my other platforms. So this is a very bad practice, whereby if someone hacked my Gmail, they can simply also hack my company email account, right? So I don't intentionally want to harm my organization, but because I didn't change my personal password properly, and I use the same password across, then it might be a threat to the organization, right? So they hack me, and then they hack the organization. Then from there, they can get my email details and all that, right? So this is something that us as people managers or HR people, we have to enforce certain policy, or even IT department, enforce certain policies in terms of IT, in terms of password security, right? So sometimes you might find like those big organizations, they will set very strict password policy, right? Talking about, oh, you need to change password every 6 months or every certain number of time, and you need to have multiple characters, all this. So we think of it as something inconvenient, but it's actually to protect us and protect the organization, right? Then of course you have social engineering. So social engineering are the same with phishing as I explained earlier, whereby people actually fall victim to scammers or to manipulation, and they reveal their information or take certain action. Sometimes they go and make payment to a scammer. They don't know that it's a scammer. right? Or they reveal certain information that they don't know that is a scam, or sometimes they will intentionally go and do it, right? So still did back to insider threat. Then, of course, unsecured devices. So this is something very personal to human beings, of course, because each human being is having their own personal device, whether it's their mobile phone or laptop or desktop or anything. These devices, most times people, they won't secure it because they think, hey, this belongs to the laptop, belongs to company will secure it. The company need to put antivirus, company need to put all this security, right? But what happened if today I realize, oh, something wrong in my system, my device is not secure, I don't flag it to my IT department, they don't take action, then it becomes a threat or risk to the company, right? Or my own personal device, my own maybe mobile phone is not secured, right? And someone hacked my mobile phone and I bring this phone to the company and I plug to the company Wi-Fi or network, it will end up becoming an issue for the company as well, right? So, of course, when it comes to insider threat, it all depends on the motive of the individual, right? So they can be intentional or unintentionally taking this bad action, right? And a very common issue is untrained employees, right? So if the employee is not having enough security awareness or knowledge, they don't even know that what they're doing is wrong. They don't know it's harmful. You see, so sometimes we cannot blame them because they say, I just received the email say, click this link to get a free voucher from AirAsia. I just click it, right? So they don't know. They don't know how to verify it's a genuine link. Or I received the email from HR. It says, this is my payslip for this month. So I simply open it. I don't know, it's around somewhere, right? So these kind of things will happen if the user or employee is not trained enough to recognize these actions. Then of course, BYOD or bring your own device, which is similar case to the unsecured devices. If let's say you allow those users to bring in their personal devices and device is not secure, then it becomes a problem or security threat for the organization. Unauthorized access, so like sharing login credentials or failing to log out of the system. Yeah, very common practice, right? Especially within office environment, certain people will have maybe, hey, I'm rushing to send out this email, this proposal, or this thing. I need to do urgently, but my laptop is down, right? Can I borrow a laptop? I simply do it. You borrow, but you don't check that, hey, this person, is he going to do anything malicious in your system or not, right? Or I need to send out some invoice or something like, or I need to log into certain platform, but my email account is having issue. I forgot my password. Can I use yours temporarily? This kind of thing. People sometimes comfortable to share because they think it's my colleague. I can trust this person. I just share to them. By the end of the day, you don't know their intention, right? So it's a best practice for us, of course, to put in these policies and also all these restrictions to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen. Right? Unsecure Wi-Fi is a very common thing as well. So now most people, when they go to like public spaces like restaurants, cafe, or even airport, all this public place, first thing, let's say they go to a restaurant, before they even ask for the menu, they ask for, hey, Wi-Fi password, right? So it's a very common thing now. There's free Wi-Fi everywhere, but we have to be very careful. Free Wi-Fi sometimes can lead to a lot of issue because it can be unsecured public Wi-Fi, right? It can be, for example, someone, let's say you go to Starbucks, someone can do certain attack whereby they have an original Starbucks Wi-Fi, for example, is Starbucks free Wi-Fi, right? Then someone can go in there, sit beside Starbucks, they create their own fake Wi-Fi, they call it Starbucks free Wi-Fi 2. Then if you don't know about security and you maybe just want to use free Wi-Fi, you just simply connect to this free Wi-Fi. Number two, you don't know that it's not belong to Starbucks, right? Because it's just a Wi-Fi name. Anyone can create it. And then you connect, you do your transaction, and then you find out you've been hacked because this person can monitor whatever you're doing, you know, for all transaction you're doing on his own Wi-Fi network, right? So this is a very common thing that also we need to be very careful and we need to put in place controls and measures to make sure it doesn't happen, right? So ignoring security policies as well. So I mentioned earlier, sometimes people just simply don't care. They know the policy, but maybe sometimes they are rushing. I need to send this email. I'm rushing for month-end closing for maybe it's a pay, salary week, and finance is rushing to finish their payroll, all these things. They're all rushing, but sometimes this is the time for the hackers to actually target you because they know you're in rush mode, you're not careful, then you can miss out a lot of things, you can make so many mistakes. Then you have to be very alert during this kind of time. Follow the policies and the process. When you receive the email, you have to make sure you check all these things, verify. Of course, you train your employees to do the same. Then another common thing is lack of multi-factor authentication, or MFA, right? So MFA now, or multi-factor authentication, or 2FA, right? Different names, but it's a very inconvenient thing, because sometimes you want to log into your email or your account, then they tell you have to send you OTP to your phone, then you keep key in here, right? It's increasing the layers, but at the end of the day, it's also very secure, right? Because most people, they sometimes think, hey, why I need to do so many things, and but at the end of the day, it's for your own safety and security. So always please turn on this MF multi-factor authentication, and please use it, right? And enforce it within your organization, enforce it for your employees as well. So talking about impact, of course, when we talk about people are not having security awareness or education, of course, when phishing attack happen, or password hygiene is not being done, or even device practices, security practices not implemented, you can have all this kind of issue. So the solution, of course, regular security awareness training, conduct phishing simulation exercise on your users, then practice password hygiene within the organization itself. All right. Now talking about the mitigations, right? So of course, you have data protection, you have phishing prevention, you have device security awareness training, compliances, or putting in place policies and best practices to make sure that all these things are mitigated, right? So the first three here, data protection, phishing, and also device security, this mostly have to do with IT department, right? The IT need to put in all the security things in place, the technology. You need to make sure phishing prevention or anti-phishing is installed, antivirus, anti-malware, all right? Device security, most times there will be technologies that can help on this part. But number five has to do with human being. Number six, human being, right? Because awareness training is mostly has to do with HR department. So HR need to enforce security awareness training, right? Because HR people, they are the, of course, handling the training and learning and development for the organization, right? If HR can enforce it, maybe they can tie it to the staff KPI that you need to go for training once a year, for example, awareness training, or once in 2 years, or at onboarding stage, when you new employee onboarded, you need to go for this security awareness training. Then afterwards, they also maybe go for after 1 year, or you put in the program that is implemented for the whole year. Some organizations, they will do on a quarterly basis, or twice a year, or one time a year. But always ensure that you do security awareness training for your users or for your staff. Now, compliance and policies, compliance with the policies as well, right? Of course, this has to do with also human being, right? We have to make sure that first thing, as the management people or HR people or IT department or whoever is responsible for the compliances, they put in the policy and processes in place to mitigate this kind of cyber threats. Make sure that certain restrictions are there, that people don't simply have access to the information that they should not have, right? It's a need to know basis. If you don't need to know this information, you shouldn't have access to it, right? And if you have access, it can be restricted access, right? Or you cannot take it out from this office space or from this device, for example. All these kind of things can be put in place, right? And then, of course, make sure you monitor for compliance or for enforcement, right? Because sometimes the policy and process is there, but people don't follow, right? So it's also a good practice to time to time check on them, make sure that they are following these processes and the compliance is in place, right? Another thing is incident reporting, right? So very important, right? So individuals who observe some suspicious activity, they need to highlight. So you need to create a culture of people feeling comfortable to come to the leaders of the organization to report or to highlight whatever threats that they see, right? Or potential threats that they see, right? Because if the reporting is not there, then you don't have, because these people, they are your eyes and ears, right? If they're not able to report to you, then you're basically blind. Only when the thing gets very bad, then only you'll find out, right? So most organizations are suggested to have a policy in place. Maybe if it's a whistleblower policy, or for example, a certain process or confidential way for those whistleblowers to report, right? Or even when someone receive an email and they suspect is a suspicious email, right? You need to highlight to the IT department or to escalate to the relevant person that will check to verify, right? So that even though they are safe, they also need to make sure that the rest of their colleagues are safe, so that the organization itself is safe. Right? So of course, security hygiene, right? So practicing good security hygiene. So for example, like logging out of account, let's say I'm going to washroom, I don't leave my password on my laptop unattended with the password logged in, right? So you need to train your employees to have this kind of knowledge and to also enforce it to make sure that, hey, when I'm going to washroom or I'm going to just go have a meeting, physical meeting, I want to leave my laptop here. I need to make sure I log out of my laptop, right? So that someone cannot come and access my laptop and do something malicious. Because it's very easy. You leave your laptop unattended, someone can come in there, install ransomware, install keylogger, or even copy out data, right? Or send an email on your behalf. Then later on, you're asking me, I didn't send this email, but the email came from your email address, right? So all this kind of security hygiene or best practices needs to be in place, right? And then remote work security. So now after COVID happened, a lot of companies allow work from home, right? Or remote work remotely, right? But then it's becoming more difficult to monitor the security of these individuals because when they're in the office, right, they are being protected by the company network, all the secure tools and communication tools is being followed. But when they are outside the organization network, they are in their home network, then maybe there's certain restriction, a certain freedom that they might have, right? Or certain access that they may have that is not being managed properly. So you need to also make sure that all this security is being put across the board, right? So there are certain tools and technologies that can be used. Of course, for example, like VPNs to make sure that everyone is connected within the same network, right? Even though they are working remotely, they need to be within the connected to an office network, all right? And they also need to be very mindful of potential security risks, right? So that they make sure that even though they're working from home, they don't become a threat to the organization. So two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, I have also explained earlier that this is something very significant that we need to monitor and implement. And as we need to also understand is, cybersecurity is a continuous process. Unfortunately, there's no one-time solution. There's no one-off. You cannot do one time and let go. It's a continuous process. We have to keep on doing, emphasizing on a daily, monthly, weekly, annual basis. It has to be a regular thing. So it's recommended to put in the best practice for managing the whole security for the organization. All right. So, I mean, some of you might be thinking at this point, hey, this thing is not related to my company because my company is a very small company, or my company is too big. We have so many security in place. We have all this thing. We have 20 security people or 20 IT people, or, right? Or you might think, hey, my company is so small. I only have 5 employees or 10 employees. Hackers don't want to hack me, for example. All right. So, but this is the trend or the statistics, right? So who is at risk? The top 3 industries by company size, right? So you can see here, when it comes to SME or small medium organizations, right? So healthcare and pharmaceutical have 44.7% fish prone, or they are prone to cybersecurity threats, right? Then for educational sector, you have 41.1, then manufacturing, you have 40.9, right? Then we're talking about the medium scale, we have about construction, 49.7, healthcare, 49.2, 43.5 for the business services. And then large organization, of course, like technology or IT companies related, right, is 55.9%, healthcare is 49.3, and manufacturing 46.8. So this indicates the level of how targeted or how prone this industry is to cyber attacks, right? So you fall within this industry, you might be thinking, hey, this is something that I need to do, right? Or this is something concerning. All right, so how do you do that? So first thing you need to do, of course, you have to create a security conscious culture. So creating company culture, of course, has to do with HR department or the top management or C-level of the organization, right? Because they have to create the culture and work with the relevant departments to enforce it, right? So we actually have a certain process or certain approach for you to implement this, right? So 3-phase approach. So the first phase there, of course, you have to do measurement, right? So let's say if you haven't trained your users at all before, you haven't done any awareness or anything before, first place is to do what we call a baseline phishing, right? To test their level of security awareness, to find their phish prone percentage, like how prone are they, or how likely are they to fall victim to this kind of phishing or ransomware or cyber attack, right? Then second phase, from the result that you see from there, right, you perform a training, right? So from this training, within, let's say, for example, after 90 days, to test again to see what is the result. And then the phase 3 to also do another training again, and then do another phishing simulation, right? To test their level of awareness and their improvement, right? So by looking at industry-wide, right, we're looking at, let's say, for phishing, right, we have about globally and across all industry is about 37.9 for the phish prone percentage for especially first timers. You never done any awareness training, anything to educate your users, and then first time you do this, the result usually will be around 37.9% of your people will fail it, right? So of course, by industry, certain industry also, they have different level of phish prone percentages, right? So you can see from here. But what happens is, after 90 days, right, you train them first, then after 90 days, you test them again, right? Then the phish prone percentage will usually come down to 14.1, right? Of course, you have to make sure that everyone attend the training. So this is also very important for HR department to enforce, to make sure that these people have attended the training and they have done the quizzes or the relevant tests to make sure that the training has been implemented in their mind, right? So of course, after these 90 days, you do one more time after 1 year, for example, you can actually break down your phish prone percentage or your security risk level to 4.7%. All right. So this is different, of course, across all industries, but on average, this is the percentage. All right. So you can see that this process or this system actually is something implementable, right? You go by phases, do training, educate the users. Of course, for new hires, whenever you onboard new staff, it's always recommended to do one round of training for them as part of their onboarding process, right? Maybe get them to read certain documents that train about your company policy, your awareness policies, and all that, your cybersecurity policies, and all this. All right, so now just to more detail on how to build a program. So of course, there are two realities when it comes to security awareness, right? So the first one you need to put in mind is, just because I'm aware doesn't mean that I care. So this is something that you need to realize. This is the mindset of employees. Just because the employees are aware that I shouldn't do this does not mean that they care about it, right? So you also have to keep in mind that if you try to work against human nature, you will fail. Then the third thing you have to make sure is what your employees do is way more important than what they know, right? So these are three things you need to keep in mind, right? When you're trying to improve your cybersecurity culture or you're designing your security awareness program. Because as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to insider threat, sometimes people know willingly that, hey, this thing I shouldn't do, but of course they don't care. Or their intention is to willingly harm the organization or to steal this data, right? Maybe for their own financial gain, or they want to sell to a certain party, or for whatever motive that they have, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Then another thing is, you also have to make sure that human nature have to be put into consideration as well, because human being, sometimes they already have their own routine, their own ways of doing things, and then when they decide, hey, I don't want to follow this thing, they will be willingly not willing to follow it. Or sometimes they will say, oh, I want to do this training, but I will only do it at my own free time. So all these kind of things have to be in your mind. All right. And you also have to make sure that they are actually following, right? So just because they know it, they know the right and wrong, they know how to do it, and all this doesn't mean that they will do it, right? So it's more important that they do it than just for them to know it. So you have to enforce, right? So we have certain cases, like some of our customers, what they do is they will work together with the HR department, and then they will tie this kind of awareness training to the KPI of the employees, right? So it's part of the staff KPI that every year you have to go for one round of awareness training, for example, or every 6 months you have to attend, or once every 2 years, for example. Different companies have different policies, right? But this is one of the ways that HR can be very helpful, is to make sure that you enforce this training, and of course you develop the policy and the guideline to restrict this kind of information sharing and those kind of loopholes that we discussed. Right? And then you have to be very specific. So talking about specific is what specific behavior, if adopted, will actually have the most benefit for your organization. Right? So what specific behavior are you trying to change? Then you have to analyze your organization, what industry you are, what product you have, what is your confidential data. Are you, for example, a software company? Then maybe your confidential or your priority is to protect your source code, right? Or your intellectual property. Or maybe you want to protect your client list or your database, or you want to protect your certain data, or even sometimes it could be financial. Of course, if you work for a bank, right, you want to protect your customer data and their financial accounts as well, right? So what specific behavior are you trying to fix? So in some cases, you have to implement what we call data leakage prevention solution, or DLP. So these are technologies that will actually help you to monitor the employees across the board, right? To make sure that when they try to leak certain information, this technology will actually flag them, right? It will raise an alarm to say that, hey, this thing you're trying to do is not allowed by the company policy, right? Or sometimes it could be you are trying to monitor who are those that is trying to leak out the information. You don't want to alarm them. You don't want them to know that you're monitoring. Then you can implement those kind of solutions. The DLP can be on silent mode, on monitoring mode, to alert you or alert the administrator or the company owner or those high-level management people that someone is trying to leak out some information or is trying to steal certain data. But they will not notify the employee. They will notify the management or the IT person or the administrator or the HR. Right? So those technologies are also in place. Of course, you also have to check whether this issue, is it unique to a certain individual, or is it to a group of people? Maybe certain department are behaving a certain way, right? Or maybe certain group of people are behaving a certain way. Is this the group mentality you want to change, or is only certain individuals or one individual, right? You also have to make sure that, is this something that can be fixed now or later on? Is it urgent, right? And how much effort are you willing to put in to fix this issue, right? So these are the kind of things that you need to put in mind. So just sharing here, like I mentioned earlier, so sometimes you have to use what we call a carrot and stick approach. So sometimes you give them some incentive to nudge them to basically to change their password or to use a strong password, or sometimes you have to enforce it. Make sure that, hey, there's a policy that the system will automatically log them out after a certain number of months if they don't change the password, for example, right? And then, of course, you have to market this whole thing to the company, right? It's not just like you have to get the employee buying in, right? So you have to plan like a marketer and then test like an attacker, right? So meaning you have to do multiple campaigns, right? You do, for example, first round of phishing, then do training, then you do another campaign, right? You have to keep on doing this and plan it like a marketer, but then you have to test it out aggressively like an attacker, or systematically, right? So at the end of it, this is what we're trying to achieve, right? You are trying to achieve overall security awareness for your users or for your employees, right? You want to make sure that they have improved from 37.9 and all the way to 4.7 within 12 months, right? So this is a measurable way for you to test out like how prone your employees are to cyber attack or to phishing or to this kind of ransomware, right? But there is no specific way for you to test when it comes to insider threat, unfortunately, right? The only thing is for you to do this kind of phishing attacks and test them out. It could be the campaign that you design. It could be certain campaign that might help you to identify who are those that are possible to intentionally or unintentionally leak out data, right? Or to do some malicious attack. But you can only know what is the percentage, right? But you cannot really know who are those specific people like that will really do the thing, right? So the only way is you make sure you put in the policy and processes in place to make sure that even they try to do it, it will be very difficult. So what are those? Like I mentioned earlier, baseline phishing, then train them, then phish them again, then see the results. So you continuously monitor this entire process and continuous education. Then you have to encourage a culture of reporting, right? Because whoever going to do this attack, most likely they will have some friends within the organization, or they will have someone that they're close to that they will tell, or someone will actually sitting beside them, or they know them, they can see they're trying to do some suspicious activity. So you have to basically have a culture of reporting by doing like those whistleblower programs, or allowing certain ways for the users to report, or if it's a phishing attack, for example, by using certain features that can help the staff to report to the IT. If they receive a suspicious email, for example, they need to be encouraged to report it, right? So that even though sometimes it might be that it look like, hey, the IT department is being given a lot of jobs, so many email being forwarded to IT, hey, can you check this, can you check this? But it's better that way, because at the long run is your people have security awareness. They're very careful in their day job. That's what you want to achieve, right? So sometimes maybe IT might complain, hey, so many email, everyone forward me their email to check. But there are technologies out there to check for these kind of things as well. All right, so as I wrap up, this will be basically my last wrap up slide before we end the session. So what are the key takeaways, right? And actionable steps that you can take away from this session. So let's say for those of you here that are HR or people managers, right? Or even, for example, IT departments or whoever is responsible for IT security, right? So you have to realize you play a critical role in preventing insider threat, right? You're not just monitoring your employees for their job performances, but you also have to monitor them for making sure that they are not doing malicious activity to the company, right? So malicious activity can be intentional or unintentional. Sometimes they will intentionally try to do this, steal data or do something or sell this or do that. But at the same time, sometimes they don't know that this thing it will lead to harm to the company. So it's our responsibility to train them, make sure that there's enough knowledge and policy and process to protect against this. And there's also a layered approach that combines technology, training, and policy. Because as we have all seen here, sometimes it's not enough to have technology, because technology can be fail when human being fail, right? Or process can also fail when human being fail, right? But if human being itself is protected, is aware and all that, then process is very solid, very strong, right? And technology is very strong and very solid, then combination of all these three means you are very safe. Of course, there's no 100% solution, but at least you have mitigated your risk by a lot, right? So of course, the first action that you can do is to review and update your security policies, right? If you don't have one, try to create one. You can check on Google, you can search, you can create this kind of policies, a basic one, not too advanced, not too stringent, at least basic to control the certain risk that you feel like you should control. Then do training, conduct security awareness training, educate all the users, make sure that everyone is aware of this policy, what is the risk, these things that are potentially our asset for the organization. These things, everyone need to be very careful and on how they access them and how they share them, right? It could be physical places, resources, it could be whatever data or anything. You can create policies and training around those certain assets, right? Then, of course, you implement access control and monitoring. So access control is restricting. So for example, someone from let's say from procurement department should not have access to certain things from finance department or from HR department, and things like that. You can create those kind of Chinese wall, right, to stop sharing of specific confidential information, so that people will have, there's no one that is actually having what we call a single point of failure, right? There's no one single human being that can simply bring down the entire organization. It could be maybe someone from the higher level management, that's a different case, but at least within the mid and lower level organization members, you should be able to control these kind of things, right? And then, of course, monitoring to make sure that nothing malicious is happening. So as we wrap up, I'll leave you with a quote. This quote is actually saying that, so security systems have to win every time, but the attacker has to only win once, right? So no matter how much technology and all this process we follow, if the attacker just need one day, right? Or in another quote, in another language, in my language, we say 99 days for the thief and then 1 day for the owner, right? So I'll just jump into the Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box and we will address them. So the chat box is open. If you have any question, it could be on this topic, or maybe if you feel like, oh, this is something that you would like to implement and you're thinking how to go about it, or whatever question you have, just feel free to drop it in the chat box and then we will answer them. Okay, Mr. Eric, you mentioned to share the recording later on. All right. So our admin will take note on this and then we'll share the recording as well. All right. So any more questions? So maybe, for example, if you haven't implemented this kind of programs or this kind of awareness training in your organization, this now is a good time to start actually, right? And of course, there's no, it's better late than never, right? If you haven't done it before, you can always start now, all right? Okay, we have a question from Noor Azman. Well, not Azwani, sorry. No, Azwani, okay, is asking how to know which matters that IT covers and which HR covers. Okay, good question. So when it comes to technology, right, this usually will be handled by the IT side, right? So some part of process and policy will also be implemented by IT, right? And then HR will work together with IT in terms of enforcement or in terms of arranging trainings or arranging cybersecurity talks, and then of course enforcing that, making sure that the staff attend, to make it mandatory, right? But as a whole, as I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So it's not only limited to HR and IT, right? But if let's say you want to divide the roles, like just to say who will handle what, usually HR should arrange the training, right? They can liaise with all the training providers to arrange the training or the talk, and then bring them in to do the training. And then they also enforce it. HR normally they will have enough power to say that this training is mandatory for all staff, right? Sometimes IT cannot have that kind of power, right, to enforce it, but HR can usually enforce this. Or HR sometimes can even tie this to their KPI. We have seen situation whereby some organization, they take the cybersecurity as a very high risk issue, right? It may be, for example, one of the case, the board of directors of the company actually ask the company to provide this kind of training. So the HR have enough power to say that, hey, everyone must attend. If you don't attend, you get you lose certain part of your KPI or something like that, right? In mandatory attendance. And then IT can work on the technology part, enforcing the firewall, enforcing the technology like EDR, like those data leakage prevention technology, and then of course crafting the policies and then the processes, right, that will protect the data and protect the company from those kind of threats. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. We have another question from Rose Melissa. So in your organization, all cybersecurity related is done by IT department. Yes, so this is a very common practice among almost all organizations, because as I mentioned, most people don't think of cybersecurity as their responsibility, right? They'll think, hey, I'm from sales team, what I need to do with IT? I'm from HR, what I need to do with IT security, right? But it's still a responsibility of everyone, right? So even though your IT department is taking care of cybersecurity, you also have to realize that when today you receive something, when let's say with some email that you don't feel comfortable, this email, why suspicious, why this link like this, why this attachment like this, or I don't have any relationship with this person, why this person emailed me? All those kind of things, when you suspect something, always raise it to the IT or raise it to the person taking care of your cybersecurity. This is how you can help the organization, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't highlight to them, IT cannot be everywhere at the same time, right? And then you also have to be careful with your own personal data, like your password. You make sure all your software is up to date, your antivirus is in place, all those kind of things. This is all responsibility that individually can do, not only IT department. Okay, we have another question from Paul. So cybersecurity is part of information security, but not all. Information security management is the responsibility of whole organization from top management to lower level, even cleaner. Excellent. Yes, that is very true. Right? So everyone is not just when it comes to, let's say, those that having company email or company laptop, it's everyone, including the cleaner, including the driver, right? Assistant, secretary, everyone has to be responsible for it, right? As Mr. Paul just mentioned now. So this is something that can happen in most organizations whereby we have seen cases where like CEO, right? The CEO of the organization have so much privilege, so much access, but he's trusting his assistant or his secretary who have no security knowledge, right? Sometimes the assistant is even replying the CEO's email on his behalf. They have access to his email and all this kind of thing. Or sometimes the driver to the CEO have always know where the CEO is going, right? They have all the access. They sometimes have conversation with the CEO. They know a lot of things, right? So if someone is to compromise this kind of lower level people like HR, like a driver or like cleaner, right? No, it doesn't have to be HR or all those senior people. It can be the very lower level people, but at the end of the day, they can lead to huge losses for the organization, or they can lead to compromise of the CEO. Maybe CEO is aware, but the people working with him, or a very common thing is, for example, cleaner. Cleaner have access to everywhere in the office, right? They can go in here because they want to clean. They can go CEO room, they can go server room, they can go, maybe not server room, but they can go almost everywhere, right? So they can see so many things. So sometimes a very common practice by us human beings, we mistakenly leave our documents unattended. It can be confidential data, right? You have certain confidential information printed, hard copy, you put on the company or you put on your table, right? You leave it there, you go home. Tomorrow morning, cleaner come in, they will see all these things, right? And who knows, if the cleaner want to be bad actor, they can take photo, they can make photocopy, they can even steal the document, right? So that's why this is all our responsibility. We have to be responsible for even those hard copy documents. Or sometimes maybe meeting room. We have a shared meeting room. We finish discussing some confidential information, or maybe IT department have done some meeting. They just put their network architecture on the whiteboard. They put the password, put all these things on the whiteboard. They write so many confidential things, but meeting ended, they didn't wipe it. They go home. The next day, cleaners come in or someone come in there, they see it, they can take photo, they can copy all these things. Or a very common one is username password that you put on a sticky table, on a sticky note on the table, right? Because we also know that we have so many passwords, we have Facebook, Gmail, so many we cannot remember, right? So we have seen this practice where people will write their username password and put it on a sticky note and put it on the table. Let's say this laptop, I cannot remember the password, or this desktop, I cannot remember the password, this one. Everyone will have the password name, username, put on sticky note and stick on the table or stick on the PC. It's a very common thing and very dangerous because hackers can, or the cleaner or whoever passing by can see it, take photo, right? Or get the access, right? And share to other people. Maybe themselves, they don't have malicious intention, but someone asked them, hey, can you get me your CEO password? They can go and do it, right? So this is why insider threat is also a very critical thing to look at. You cannot simply trust everyone. Okay, so there's a comment by Trishan. Senior or elderly staff may be stubborn to adapt to follow the cybersecurity measures. How to help those groups? Excellent. Yeah, so this is something that we also, because we perform this kind of trainings and programs for our customers, so we have seen a lot of cases like this whereby especially the C-level, CEO, CTO, CIO, the CFO, the C-level people, very senior level people that you cannot force them, right? They are above you, right? But they also have more privilege than everyone. They are the high-risk target, right? So a lot of times what we do is we ask the customer to arrange a training for them, right? A briefing, right? It can be very short, 10 minutes, sorry, not 10 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes, or for example, just 30-minute session, because top management people normally don't have enough time, right? So within that short time, we can do a briefing to them to expose this threat to them, right? So for example, we have some cases, some of even the customer, they will ask us to do this kind of training for their board of directors. During the board meeting, they will allocate a very short time slot for us. We go in there, we do this training or talks, right? To teach them, you as a senior management people, you have this kind of access and this kind of privilege. You are a high value target for the attackers, and this is what they can do. So we do live demonstration in front of them. So instead of like we just do talking, show slide, in that session, we will actually do live demonstration of cyber attack, right? So we can just ask, for example, any random audience member can give us one email address. We send an email, a fake email from this, let's say, for example, we take an email from Trishan. We send an email from Trishan to another email address in front of them, right? Or we send an email from your CEO to another email address in front of them, right? So it looks like it's coming from the CEO or the senior management people, but it's not. So this kind of thing will be an eye opener for them. They're like, oh, wow, right? It will get their attention. So because most times what they do is they don't really imagine that hacking will happen to them, because they are thinking hacking happen only in movie, or hacking, is happening to only big organizations like banks. Why people want to hack me? People have a lot of people have this mindset. Why people want to hack me? I'm a small company, right? Or my company don't have any money, didn't have big data to store, nothing to, but it happens. All right. So we will do this live demo to show them how easy it is to be hacked, how easy it is for someone to send an email from any email address to do a phishing. It can look like it's coming from Obama. We send an email from Obama or Donald Trump to another email in front of them. Then they can see, hey, very easy. So just because the email says it's from Obama doesn't mean it's actually from him. And then we show them this kind of thing. So it opens their eyes. And usually we find that this thing will actually improve, we have to improve their response, right? Instead of, hey, every time we keep talking, do this, no, but we do a live demo in front of them, usually the response will be different from there, because now they see it's so easy to happen. So we have another comment from Uthman. Some of us may attend training a lot, but when it comes to the actual life, we are still get trapped. How to measure the self-awareness about the CIA element? Oh, great question. Okay, so this is also another thing that most organizations struggle with, right? You do a lot of training, like for example, some of my customer, which is a bank, that they will do training on a quarterly basis, right, for all the staff. But somehow, the staff still fall victim to phishing, right? Or some still fall victim to cyber threat, right? There's always some group of people that will always fall victim for this. So one thing is you have to also be very careful on your own personal life, right? Be always suspicious. Don't simply trust anyone or anything. Always be suspicious, right? So in cybersecurity, we have this concept called zero trust, right? Or trust but verify, right? So even if you receive a link or some email or something from someone that you trust, you just, before you act on it, just pause a bit, take some time, analyze, especially if it's something very sensitive. Someone is asking you to make some payment, or someone is asking you to do something that you think is unusual. Just pause, take a moment, analyze it. If you really don't feel comfortable, you think something is suspicious, verify. You can maybe, let's say the email is from your colleague. You can call this colleague separately or physically. You can go to them and ask, hey, is this from you? Is this genuine? Right? This is something that we need to do. Or sometimes, even if maybe it's from your boss, but you can analyze. Normally, some of the bosses, they will write in detail. When you send an email or instruction, they will give detail. But suddenly you receive an instruction from your boss, it's one word or two words. Hey, you might say, this is not my boss style of writing, right? I will go and ask him, or I suspect something, I'll go and ask him, right? So these are kind of things that we need to practice on a daily basis to help us to improve on our own personal level when it comes to CIA. So it's a personal alert level. We have to really be very, very alert. All right. So the training itself, like you mentioned, training can be done. You can go for 100 training, but if you don't take it seriously, you don't implement it in your daily life, there's no point. Right? You know it, but you don't want to do it. Or you know it, but you feel like it won't happen to me. But until it really happens, then you find yourself in a very tough situation, right? So it's very good practice to always be alert, make sure, verify information, don't simply trust, right? Especially when it comes to links, URL or file attachments, all right? Very, very important. Because most of the phishing attack happen is someone will send you a phishing email. Like for example, now it's Raya season is coming up. so they sent an email from TGV Cinema, with conjunction of Hari Raya, TGV Cinema is giving out free movie ticket. Click this link to redeem. Of course, sometimes it's too good to be true, right? Don't simply click. Look at the link, you analyze. Or sometimes, let's say AirAsia send you an email, in conjunction with Hari Raya, AirAsia is giving out 50% flight ticket. Click this link to redeem. So there are ways that you can identify whether this link is a genuine link, if there's an attachment, whether this attachment is a genuine attachment. So I have to be very, very careful on a personal level. So another comment by Rose Melissa. Okay, when it comes to ISMS audit, all are involved. Yes. So I mean, this happens if your organization have ISMS audit. So not every organization need to comply to ISMS, right? So sometimes it could be your company doesn't have ISMS compliance, right? So in that case, one way you can do is to work with HR, all right? Arrange training, work with HR, convince the HR to arrange this kind of training, this kind of talks, to brief all the staff, and we have a special session for senior management people actually, or for the board of directors, right? So the training content, the way it's designed, the manner approach is all different. It's more targeted towards the audience of those senior level people. So you can arrange that kind of talk. And then of course we do live demo, as I mentioned, to open their eyes, right? For them to see that this thing is really happening and it's easy to happen. I can easily fall victim to all this scam. Right? So usually from there, you will find their response will be a bit different. Because audits, if let's say your organization is big enough that they have audit requirement, then yes, you are safe. Just simply force everyone to go for the training. Why do I need to go for training? Because auditor require, because ISMS require us to do it. Right? So for those that are not aware, so ISMS, of course, is Information Security Management System, is an ISO compliance, right? Whereby it's compliance that requires the organization to get audited every year. And part of the audit is security awareness needs to be done to all the users, to all the staff, right? So that makes your job easier because you just use the auditor as a justification. Why I need to go for training? Because auditor, ISMS auditor need us to do training for everyone. And we need to submit the attendance evidence that everyone has attended, right? So in such cases, it's very easy. In certain cases, as I mentioned earlier, one of the example is the board of directors enforce it. Everyone needs to go. Why? Because the board of directors enforce, everyone needs to go. Or certain cases, if HR is really strong enough in that organization, HR can enforce everyone mandatory attendance. Or in some cases, maybe you don't have enough power to enforce it. But one thing you have, maybe you have carrot approach, give incentive, right? So one of the ways is you can make it like a lunch session. For example, like free lunch, just 1 hour session during lunch break, bring in the trainer to come and train, do the talking, and then you give out free lunches or some voucher or some incentive, right? Or sometimes you say, okay, this is an additional point, additional training points. You attend this training, you get additional training points for your KPI, for example. So there are so many ways. Sometimes it can be carrot approach, sometimes it can be a stick approach. It has to be different approaches. But the whole idea is, of course, you want people to really understand the importance of cybersecurity to actually practice in their daily life as well. So another comment by Paul, maybe could be simplify the training according to culture and generation. Yes. So I mentioned earlier, like for example, for Connection Zebra, we actually have different training content for different audience, right? So if the audience is senior management or C-level or board of directors, there will be a different training content, which is much shorter. Usually it will be 1 hour or lesser than that because they are very busy people, not so much time for them to spend on this kind of training. Then if it's maybe for the general staff, you can have maybe 2-hour session or some cases even 4 hours. So it will be more extensive. We can cover more topic, we can do more live demonstration, and usually we can educate these people more, right? So you can do the same. You can have a separate session for the C-level and the board, and then you can also have a separate session for the general staff. So far, any more questions? Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I think we can proceed to end the session, because I can see we're over time by almost about 27 minutes over time. So I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be here. So I'd like to thank you so much for taking out the time to spend this afternoon with us. We hope you actually learn and appreciate something from our session. So as I wrap up, I just want to share with you that we are actually offering a free phishing exercise, free phishing assessment, right? So Condition Zebra, one of the things that we provide is actually this phishing simulation, right? So on the screen here, I'm showing this QR code. You can feel free to scan this QR it will take you to the website, to a landing page. You can just submit your information and then we'll contact you to arrange the phishing. So this will basically just help you to test the level of awareness of your users, but it's a free, 100% free, no strings attached, right? At the end of it, we will do the phishing test. We submit you the report, and then you can see what is the phishing prone percentage, or how vulnerable are your employees to cyber attack or phishing attacks. So this is available on the screen. You can just scan this QR code. It will take you to the phishing site, to the free phishing landing page. All right, so if no further question, we can proceed to end today's session. And if you have any requirement for security assessment or this kind of training that we discussed today, Condition Zebra is specialized in this area. So you can just reach out to us via phone call or email. You can reply from the email that was sent out for the invitation, or you send to our corporate email, and then we will reach out to you for further discussion. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks for your time. Have a good weekend.